So, the first post I read of yours that really resonated with me was it was called "How Can We Share a Country When We Don't Share a Reality?" And I had been thinking that myself, and still do in my own deliberations. Can I even stay in this country? And I sometimes say to people, it just feels too dangerous to share a political system with people who are so divorced from the facts of what is happening, whether it be science, whether it be healthcare, whether it be risk assessment, like, what are the real risks out there?
There's so many people trying to figure out how to convert those folks to reality, help deprogram them. But to leave a cult, which because that is it's religious thinking, they're especially for people who did grow up in religion, they're trained to ignore the things that they see with their eyes and ears and the lack of evidence, and instead choose to adopt other things. And I'm not here to tell people to be an atheist or anything like that, but that is a it's the minority of people in religious communities who like the Augustines are a good example. They'll say like, hey, we want to create actual logical frameworks and heuristics around being closer to reality while still having faith. But for these folks, it's we're not going to be able to, like, what needs to happen is we put people in from Fox News in jail. And I'll say that, quote me on it, but that is what needs to happen.
I read that
And
post.
yeah, but that's the thing is like we can recognize what would work, but we can also assess how likely it is to happen. And my favorite strategies and tactics, they work whether you're right or wrong. And so if we operate from a place of, hey, they might come around, they might not, but if we do X, Y, and Z, which we can do, then we're going to actually be better off either way. And that's how I approach that is, are we going to make more progress by trying to convert people or by just figuring out where we have power and building better government? And
So,
oh, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
no, I was just say so. So basically acknowledging that, we may or may not, and probably not convert this big chunk of the population, to a reality-based kind of ethos. But we basically have to try and exercise power or take actions, assuming they won't.
Yeah, absolutely. That's how you win a war, and this is a war. It's asymmetric warfare. We do not have the power or the majority of it. We have to recognize how we can be distributed in our efforts and recognize the tools that we have. And that's part of what makes Democrats' process right now so frustrating, is because every step of the way, and I think part of this is because there's so many lawyers running things,
Hmm.
is they say, okay, well, we're going to wait for them to do this, and then we'll do that, and that means that it's legally justified. But we're operating in an environment now where the law is it's allowed for Republicans and it's not for Democrats. That's what Biden was told he's not allowed to cancel student loan debt, and Trump is told he can break any law he wishes.
Right. And that leads me to my next question, which is, I mean, one of the things I like about sort of a theme that runs through your posting is that it feels like our institutions and our politicians have been slow to catch on that, the normal processes in America that have traditionally protected us from tyranny, the Constitution and the courts and lawsuits, are not working because one side has opted out of that system. They don't they basically use them to their advantage, like you said, like the law. If they get a decision they like, that's great. If they get a decision they don't like, well, they ignore it, or they find a way around it. And I took note of that one post where you listed all the ways that they had gotten unfavorable court decisions, and then just sort of did the same thing using another legal justification, and that starts the whole process over again, going back to court. And meanwhile, all the facts on the ground are they're just doing what they want to do while the court cases play themselves. They're gaming the system, over and
Yeah,
over.
they're
So
playing to win.
they're playing to win, and It's heads we win, tails you lose. So how, what do we do when those systems have broken down so much and the other side is just so gung ho, basically about winning at all costs?
Yeah. Well, I will say I'm about to release a book in the next week called Toppling Tyrants, a field guide to dismantling American fascism. And I'm really excited to get that out there. And it's going to cover a lot of this. So there's one part of this is the information compartmentalization that I don't think is addressed. Now we talk about how there's the Republican infosphere and culture, but even politicians who are well-meaning are part of a similarly insulated environment, and that environment is diluted about our circumstance. And so we need to create incentives and disincentives that alter their behavior, motivate them. Like that's the difference between motivation and manipulation. Motivation is saying, I'm empowering you to do things that benefit you and us. Manipulation would be, I'm going to coerce you to do things that I want you to do that aren't in your interest and that sort of thing. And we need to exercise the levers of power to influence politicians, the well meaning and the not well meaning, to know that they should fear the ire of the public more than they fear the ire of fascists or oligarchs or that sort of thing. How do we do that in a practical sense? One of the programs I'm putting together, it's a four-stage process. Part one, educate, teach people about the policies that can actually help us. So, and that gets small. I was talking to a city council member recently, and they were talking about how hard it is to get a speed bump in a neighborhood. Like the amount of bureaucracy and how expensive it is, and people are going to fight it, and this organization wants it, that one doesn't. Like, look, if your constituents keep telling you they want that speed bump, and X, Y, or Z organization's making it difficult, call it something else. Find another name for it, a speed deterrent lump, whatever, and let it go. Let it go to court, and then show your constituents, well, we built it. Are they going to remove it? Make the people who don't like this remove it. It'll probably be 5 or 10 years from now. There's like a Machiavellian brilliance to doing that. We have to create friction on every level. These are tools that we should be taking from
Yeah.
conservatives. Is we should be obstructing their goals and missions everywhere we can. And it doesn't have to really take effort. In fact, they're able to obstruct by just not showing up. And we can use those similar tools of leverage. It's like you said, heads we win, tails you lose. They're in control of Congress. They have the power. They're not in control of Congress. Well, they still manage to have the power because they're unafraid to obstruct and to just
Yeah.
literally find anything they can to gum up the works what we're doing. And that's how we're going to defeat fascism, is by improving things at the local and state level, empowering those organizations, actually getting things done for our constituents and protecting them so that let the federal government fall apart. We have our statewide health insurance. We have our statewide retirement program to replace SSI when Republicans get rid of that because they're working on it. So that's educate, activate. That's what rolls into that is actually taking actions every day if you can, small actions to organize and influence politicians. The vision that I'm trying to help bring people is, I've been part of quite a few activist organizations, and I find that they're 95% bureaucracy and 5% action. And a lot of times that action is suboptimal. Now that's not a criticism. Those people are on my team and they're on your team. So we need to be more effective. We need to flip that over. We need to be 95% action, 5% organizing. And that action we take, first of all, you can be wildly suboptimal, but if you're producing far more effort, then you're going to get far better results. That's part of asymmetric warfare too. Is it makes sense to be an institutionalist when you have the power. We don't have the power, and so everything we can every day, contacting politicians, filing paperwork. Also, it's the things too as we grow and we develop, we can discover what are the things that are unenforceable for the government. How do we nullify their rules? How could we pass a law in enough cities or states that they're not going to be able to have the capacity to enforce it, especially since they've gutted so much of the federal regulatory and enforcement systems? And I can go on and on and on, but hopefully, oh, and then after that is recruit and then repeat. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it,
Oh, okay. I mean, one thing that I'll note is that what you're recommending feels to me what the right actually did when they were out of power, which I know one of the books say like is Saul Alinsky's like Rules for Radicals. Like they saw what was happening in the 60s, and they took a lot of the tactics of the counterculture and they assimilated it into their own kind of thinking about how to regain power. And they took it really to it, but they also had billions of dollars behind them.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
okay. So I think one of your really interesting ideas is this idea of soft secession. And talk about how that could be accomplished, given our present situation. What is it,
Well,
first of all? Go.
sure. Soft secession is, I mean, it's really academically, it's usually referred to as federalism, but it's just states and cities creating infrastructure that's not reliant on the federal government. And when they don't agree with federal government decisions, they find ways to nullify, obstruct, or not engage with those decisions. It's playing hardball at the city and state and local level. That's soft secession. Now, the great news is it's already happening. It truly is. We can just help fight for it. Every time, Mamdani and those sorts of people are out there creating services that work for the people, and they don't need the federal government. And every time that they are asked to do something, whether it relates to, I mean, the right did it with gun laws, and we've done it some with like sanctuary cities and not providing help with ICE. The way when we choose not to engage with the policies that we don't agree with, that is soft secession. We're doing it. What I hope to do is help educate, activate, recruit, and repeat so that we can take a really active role in this. Because if we don't do it effectively enough, we end up in Republican tyranny, and in of basically they want us to be Russia but with more guns. And so this
Yeah.
is how we take control of that process and make it real clear. If politicians they're interested in this. I have folks who've told me there are governors who have read what I'm writing. They're interested. They're talking about it, but they're not going to do it unless they know that it's going to make them more popular.
Do you think ultimately, I mean, this will be so like as you get more into secession and as you take as a state or a municipality takes more actions in conflict with the federal government's dictates, I mean that would seem to probably force confrontations um, in which the federal government has the advantage in that they have the men with the guns. And so if they really want to enforce something, it feels like they can do it. If they're not abiding by processes anyway and legalities, I mean, in my view, like if they are forced to, they will send people in and punish people who aren't complying in any way. I mean, they have a million ways to do it, via the tax code or audits administratively or ultimately just by force, like occupying the cities, which we've already seen a kind of an incipient version of that. So, what do you anticipate would happen if states, let's say California, let's say California and the other states, they send more money to the federal government than they get back. So, if there's some kind of tax resistance.
A lot of it depends on which policies we employ. There's the more ambitious ones that are more likely to cause challenges, and then the ones that are going to be easier and not face much of a fight. Now, when it comes to like the tax ideas, which by the way, Republicans in Washington State tried to pass a law doing exactly what I've been talking about in like 2010 because they
Hmm.
thought Obama was evil and all of that. And they so that they were ready, they were talking about this and trying to do it. Even though they had a minority and knew it wasn't going to get passed, they were still doing it. They were still fighting, and that's why they're ahead. Now, those clashes might happen if we can get multiple states engaged in any of these policies at the same time. That is insulation from the things that are going to happen when, like I said before, they've gutted so much of regulatory and enforcement mechanisms in the federal government that they're doing a terrible job of keeping track of things. Their logistics are a nightmare. We can break their system, but it requires a lot of solidarity. When folks are courageous in a very small area, it's going to be easier for them to fight that. So, what form does it take when they're doing it? Tough to say. I mean, does anyone listening to this doubt that Trump would wants to send his enemies to jail? He said as much, or at least support them. I am honestly, he's a mob guy.
Yeah.
Has he had people killed? I don't know. I mean, I don't. He said he's happy that Biden has cancer. Is that really a guy who we think has a problem if the KGB or FSB or the CIA wants to kill somebody and they're an American citizen? He's not bothered by that. It's ugly. You don't get out of tyranny without things getting rough. We will suffer more if we do not show courage now.
Mm.
That is the deal. That's it. Things will just evolve
Yeah.
or we will step up. And that's part of what I'm fighting for. And I appreciate you having me on so we can chat about it.
Okay. Okay, so I'll just ask one more question is what should your average citizen do? What can they do to fight back now? And maybe that, dovetails with some of your ideas. Like how can we what is the most effective way to resist right now for anyone listening to this?
Well, there's three main pillars that I think are helpful, and I've lumped them in with the soft secession stuff. The right now, find out who your attorney general is for your state, contact them and say, hey, we want aggressive investigations and prosecutions of corrupt officials at any and every level. And don't pass those cases up to corrupt federal enforcement mechanisms. They work for the president. That's who they work for. Don't pass it along. Don't let them take the case. You can just say no and let them then see what they do. Then they're reacting to us. We need to put corrupt politicians in jail, and we win on anti-corruption. You get the public to love you. Any attorney general who wants to be a governor should really think about being the first one to step up on this. Two, so contact your attorney generals. Send them every single day. People do it once and they think it's over. Make it personal. Contact them on Facebook. Then send them an email. Then call their office. Then do this. Then do that. Do it every single day and make it different. It takes 30 seconds and it actually helps. So getting rid of corruption is one. Two is social safety nets at the city and state level. Contact your city council members, contact your mayor, contact your state legislators, and tell them we want something for when Republicans get rid of SSI and when they're done gutting Medicaid. And here
Mm,
are some ideas I think can help with that. Now, the third one, non-tax revenue. That's the big one, making like utilities public, municipal broadband. Tennessee did that and it worked out very well. People were getting cheaper services and they were working better and it was bringing in non-tax revenue for the state. Public banking like they have in Montana. The Montana Public Bank has brought in more revenue every single year. It's been profitable every single year for over 100 years. It brings in non-tax revenue that helps fund things. I'm not a fan of taxes on the working class. I think we should get rid of those at every level possible for the working class. That's a whole different tangent. But the point is, we need money to fund these social safety nets. So let's make public utilities. Also, if we can do public utilities, if we can do public banking, if we can find these non-tax revenue streams that deliver, like the post office does, deliver benefits to the public, they're quality and appreciated, and their non-tax revenue, then they fund those other things that we need to do, and they also create resilience for us. So just like when I mentioned with the attorneys general, you're contacting your state legislators and you're
mm,
telling them we want this now. We don't have time to wait for another election.
right.
Pass these policies. Also, educate other people. And that's step one, educate people about these ideas. Two, contact these people every single day and let them know I'm watching you, see me seeing you, and know that even if I like you, I'm going to hold you accountable. Three is educate, activate, uh, and then recruit. Help get other people involved. Make it social. Get to know them. Say, hey, let's start a Dungeons and Dragons group among our activists, and then let's invite more people in. And we're going to build a community around this, and we're going to have fun, and we're going to encourage each other because we are here to live. We cannot rent. We cannot visit the activist world. This isn't going to be over. It takes years, even with Erica Chenoweth's research, that whole
Yeah.
3.5% thing, that's sustained over years with many different mechanisms being employed to combat
Yeah.
authoritarian governments. And that's the repeat stage.
Okay, Chris. Yeah, this does feel like the beginning of a long period of fighting. I sort of feel I'm, a lot older than you that this will probably occupy me the rest of my life. Because like the genie's out of the bottle and they have their own formula and they're going to go after Europe next and you know, it's going to be a long process. I feel it's a movement, right? I mean, and kind of starting from scratch in a way. So, anything else you want to say before we go?
Anything else I want to say? Well, right now on the existentialistrepublic.com, you could get the introduction to soft secession booklet. And that some people are like sending that to representatives or sharing it with friends and family.
Okay.
And, I have my book, Conservatism, America's Personality Disorder, that's out. And those I think are useful and helpful. And I have my new book coming out in about a week, Toppling Tyrants. And I'm just plugging those because this
Okay.
is my life's work now is I, for a living, work with the Existentialist Republic. And we have a team now, and we are trying to really build this decentralized thing. I mean, the power that happened with these No King's Day protests and with Occupy Wall Street when that happened, that was so much energy and enthusiasm, and we need to learn how to keep that high and sustained and effective. And I just want to empower everyone listening to this to, it doesn't have to be through me. Do it your way. I just think my ideas are really have really strong research backing and are some of the strategies that are proven. They're not my ideas. I'm assembling other people's good ideas. And I
Right.
hope that you'll enjoy it.
Okay. Chris, thank you so much, and hopefully we'll talk again, and I'll continue to follow you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, take care. Bye.